It's Wednesday, May 1st, 2024, episode 2. You're listening to From a Distance. This episode is the second part of a two-part series on the background of Palestine and the Palestinians, as well as Israel and the Jews. This episode serves as a background story and reference for other episodes, so be sure to also listen to episode 1 on Israel and the Jews. And if you're already listening, you can add the introductory episode to your queue to learn more about what to expect from my podcast. In this episode, I will be discussing the history of Palestinians as a people, starting with the geographical location of ancient Palestine and the current West Bank and Gaza. If you have listened to the episode on Israel and the Jews, you recognize some of the information. This is not surprising, as the two peoples have been living side by side for years. Palestine was once known as Canaan and encompassed the areas now known as Israel, the Palestinian territories of Gaza and the West Bank, and parts of the surrounding areas of Jordan, Syria and Lebanon. It included fertile coastal plains, hills and mountains, as well as dry desert areas. The diverse environment supported a variety of flora and fauna and was conducive to agriculture, livestock farming and trade. Both in ancient Palestine and today, olive trees have played an important role in the agriculture and cultural landscapes. These trees thrive in the Mediterranean climate of the region, with mild winters and warm, dry summers. The yield is an important source of income for Palestinian farmers. Additionally, olive trees hold a symbolic significance for Palestinian identity and culture, as they have been associated with the land and its people for centuries. Olive trees are seen as a symbol of resilience, steadfastness, and connection to the Palestinian land, and they play an important role in Palestinian ceremonies, customs, and folklore. Unfortunately, olive trees have also suffered as a result of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with cases of destruction, confiscation, and illegal uprooting by Israeli authorities and settlers. Despite these challenges, olive trees remain a prominent feature of the Palestinian landscape and a source of pride and determination for the Palestinian population. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is a central and sacred aspect of Palestinian life and source of inspiration and strength for the Palestinian population, who continue to uphold onto hope for freedom, justice, and self-determination. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, located on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, is one of the most important Islamic holy sites in the world. It was built between 705 and 715. The construction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque was a large-scale project that was politically and religiously sensitive. It was intended by Muslims as a political and religious declaration of the power and superiority of Islam, especially in relation to Christianity and Judaism. The site on which the mosque was built had long been a holy place for both Muslims and Jews. According to Islamic traditions, the Temple Mount is considered to be a location of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and a Dome of the Rock, while the Jews, it is for them the location of the first and second Jewish temples. The Temple Mount remains a holy and contested site, where political and religious interests often collide. The Palestinians saw the Balfour Declaration as a betrayal of their right to self-determination and sovereignty over their land. It led to increased tensions between the Palestinians and the Jewish community that began to settle in Palestine. These tensions eventually escalated into violent conflicts between the Palestinians and the Jews. Furthermore, The support of the British government laid the foundation for further colonization and annexation of Palestinian land by Jewish immigrants. This led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their home during the Arab-Israeli War in 1948, resulting in a humanitarian crisis and a long-standing refugee issue for the Palestinian population. This displacement of Palestinians is also known as Nakba. Conflicts and tensions between the Jews and Palestinians continue to this day. The origins of the Palestinian people date back thousands of years to when various people and cultures inhabited the area now known as Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. The first historical mention of the name Palestine comes from the 5th century before Christ, when the Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered the region and named it Palestine, derived from the name of the seafaring people who inhabited the coastal areas, the Philistines. Over the centuries, various people and empires have ruled the region, including the Romans, the Byzantines, Arabs, Ottomans, and the British. The modern Palestinian identity began to emerge in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as the Zionist movement began to establish a Jewish state in Palestine. The Arab population of Palestine began to organize and identify themselves as Palestinians in order to express their national aspirations and objections to the Zionist movements. As mentioned earlier, during the British Mandate for Palestine, from 1920 to 1948, the Palestinian national movement grew and violent clashes occurred between the Jewish and Arab groups. After the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes and settled in refugee camps in the West Bank, Gaza, and surrounding Arab countries, where they and their descendants still live as refugees without permanent housing or citizenship. The Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza since 1967 has also significant consequences for the Palestinian people. Palestinians lived under military occupation and were restricted in their freedom of movement, had reduced access to land and water, and limited economic opportunities. Settlers, mostly radical Jewish Israelis, built settlements on Palestinian land, which led to the confiscation of land and displacement of its inhabitants. Due to the conflicts with Israel and the displacement of Palestinians, several Palestinian military groups emerged, such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. You may have heard these three names in the news regarding the Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023. Hamas is known for its violent attacks on Israeli civilians and military targets, including suicide bombings, rocket attacks, and kidnappings. Hamas has a strong military wing that is responsible for many of the violent attacks on Israeli targets. Hamas has also a political wing that is active in Palestinian politics and won the Palestinian parliamentary elections in 2006. Hamas has several goals, including the establishment of an Islamic State in Palestine, the destruction of the State of Israel, and the expulsion of Jewish inhabitants from the area. In 1992, Israel occupied southern Lebanon. Hezbollah is a Shiite Islamic political and militant movement that was founded to fight against the Israeli occupation of South Lebanon. The group was supported by Iran and Syria. Hezbollah has a strong military wing that is responsible for numerous attacks on Israeli targets, including rocket attacks. During the Lebanon War in 2006, Hezbollah fought against the Israeli army in South Lebanon, resulting in significant damage and thousands of casualties on both sides. Finally, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They are a Palestinian militant group that was founded in the 1980s. The group is inspired by the Islamic Revolution in Iran and aims to establish an Islamic state in Palestine. They are also known for their violent attacks on Israeli targets, including suicide bombings, rocket attacks, and shootings. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad is smaller than Hamas, but it has a strong military wing and is mainly active in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. The group has also ties with Iran and receives financial and military support from them. The aforementioned groups are considered terrorist organizations by many countries, including the United States and the European Union. The violence that the Palestinian people have had to endure has understandably had a significant impact on the individual Palestinian. The impact of wars on individual Palestinians is devastating, with the possible physical harm, loss of livelihood, and traumas as a result. Wars not only cause direct injuries and death, but also long-lasting psychological problems such as anxiety and depression, and social disruption due to the loss of homes and separation from family and community. The events of October 7, 2023, the Hamas attack on the Israeli population, have also left deep wounds among the Palestinians. Hamas fired thousands of rockets from the Gaza Strip at Israeli locations and the major cities of Tel Aviv and Israel. Hundreds of Palestinians breached the border with Israel and committed massacres in the border area, killing at least 1,300 civilians and military personnel. An estimate of 250 people were kidnapped and taken to Gaza. Hamas stated that the attack was a response to the violence of Israeli settlers, the blockade of the Gaza Strip, and the desegregation of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, as well as the atrocities committed against the Palestinian population by the Israeli side on recent decades. Israel responded harshly to the attack. They closed the borders, causing almost no food to enter Gaza. The water and oil pipelines were also closed, which had a significant impact on the Palestinian population. For months, only small amounts of food entered Gaza, causing a famine. It is today, May 1st, 2024, and this war is still going on. I realize that there is much more to tell in detail. I have maybe overlooked or insufficiently highlighted crucial events in the eyes of Palestinians, but my goal is to provide a picture of the Palestinian people and the many wars and conflicts that they have experienced. During future episodes, I will refer back to this and the previous episodes. Thank you for listening to this episode about the Palestinian people and the many wars and conflicts that they have experienced. I hope you have learned a lot and gained a better understanding of the complex situation in the region. If you have any comments or think that I have missed something important, please let me know. I'm always open to feedback and I'm curiously about the thoughts of my listeners. If you want to make sure you do not miss any future episodes, subscribe to my podcast in your favorite podcast app or on my YouTube channel. Also give likes and share the podcast with your family, friends, and colleagues to introduce them to this important information. Thank you again for listening, and until the next episode.